All right, everybody, welcome to part 3 of Monuments and Attractions in Washington, D.C. There's just so much to cover that I had to split it into 3 parts. So, in part 2, if you didn't check out part 2, we talked all about the White House and Mount Vernon and the Washington Monument and a lot of other cool things. So if you want to check that out, check it out. It's lots of cool information. All right, so our first stop on this tour is the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Now, it doesn't look nearly as exciting as it really is on the outside. This is where they print money. So there are actually 2 in Bureau of Engraving locations. One is in DC and the other one's down in Fort Worth, Texas. The Bureau uses 4.8 million pounds of paper every year to make the money that they make. The life expectancy of a $1 bill, they say, is about 18 months. So they go in and out of circulation about every 18 months. Altogether, the 2 locations combined, they use about 9.7 tons of ink in one day. Pretty amazing, right? The other thing, kind of an interesting thing to know, this is only where paper money is made, not coins. Coins are made at a different place. It's the U.S. Mint is where that is made. And so it's only paper money that's located here, that's printed here. So the amount of money that they print, this is pretty cool, is $2.5 million in paper currency printed each day, 6 days a week, all year long. Pretty unbelievable. So they're always printing money. Now, when they put new money out, they also take money back out. You know, they cycle it out. So old bills are taken back and disposed of, and then they make new bills, and then they put those out into circulation. They call it paper money, but it's actually not made of paper. It's made of 75% cotton and 25% linen. So they call it paper money, but it's not actually made of paper like we would print or, print on or write on or things like that. So interesting fact. This is actually $1 million in $10 notes. So this is when you walk into the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, this is sitting there. So there are $1 million in here. They are in $10 bills, and it's not cut. So it's sitting there in like a big chunk. So kind of an interesting display, and it's always pretty amazing to get that close to $1 million. They do some other things in here as well. They make IDs and ID cards and award certificates, formal invitations for government stuff. So they do some other things other than just print money, but the thing that's the coolest and they're most well known for is printing money. So when money is printed, it's not printed in individual dollar bills. It's printed on big sheets and then they're cut. So this woman is holding up a sheet of $1 bills. And if you look at this, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are $32 on this sheet. It just hasn't been cut yet. Today, the highest denomination that really you see are the $100 bills. However, the largest amount made on a bill was $100,000 once upon a time. So yeah, kind of interesting fact about that. So Bureau of Engraving and Printing is super fun, a lot of fun. In the gift shop, you can buy all sorts of stuff. You can actually buy one of those full sheets. They also shred money when they're done with it, so you can buy a bag of shredded money. So all sorts of cool things in the gift shop. This is the FBI building. So this is the headquarters of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So the building has all sorts of features to it. It does have classrooms and theaters and auditoriums. And so they have those sorts of things. They also have an automobile repair shop. They have a 2-story basketball court. They have vaults and laboratories and exercise rooms and a film library, a firing range, lab space, a medical clinic, a morgue, a printing plant, and all sorts of other things here. So it looks like a pretty plain building on the outside, but there's a lot going on here in the FBI building. It's called J. Edgar Hoover, named after DJ Edgar Hoover that used to run the FBI. And it it does have it has another off-site area in Quantico, Virginia, that is where some of their laboratory stuff happens. So it is a big space, but it can't hold everything that they need. So some of their stuff does happen down in Quantico, Virginia. They do have a museum in there. So basically, once you're through security, there's a courtyard and you go into the FBI Experience Museum. They get you through into the museum. It's a self-guided tour, and there are all sorts of cool things in here. There's a thing about surveillance, and there's a picture that has a hidden camera in it. There are some things from the desk of J. Edgar Hoover, who was the FBI director at one point. There's also a collection of things about the World Trade Center and 9/11 and things like that. So there's a lot of really cool stuff here in the FBI Museum. Ford's Theater. So this seems kind of like an interesting thing to have on a tour, but no, we wouldn't be going to see a play here in Ford's Theater. This is actually where Abraham Lincoln was killed. He went to go see a play called Our American Cousin. Goodness, my words are not coming out today. It was on April 14th in 1865. And so he went with his wife and another couple. And here you can see Mr. Lincoln here and his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln here. And this man back here is John Wilkes Booth. So during the play, he snuck in and shot Mr. Lincoln in the back of the head. And then he jumped off of the balcony onto the stage and escaped. He actually hurt his leg while doing that, and was on the run for a pretty long time, but then they eventually caught him. This is what Ford's Theater looks like today. So they have this set up in a very formal way so that you can see what it would have looked like with when Abraham Lincoln was there. They do still have productions and plays there. So yes, it is set up like a theater because it is a theater. They do have some plays and things there. For a little while, it was not a theater. They used it for other things, but now it's back to being a theater. So they do have a museum in there as well, and they do a wonderful job of touring it. Also, they have some great people that do some great explanations of what happened. So Abraham Lincoln did not die immediately. He was actually taken across the street to a place called the Petersen House. So this is Abraham Lincoln's his deathbed. He didn't die until the next morning. So he died there. As you can see, a lot of people were there tending to him, and doctors were trying to take care of him, but he was shot in the head, and it was in the 1800s. So medical expertise was not what it is today. I don't even know that they could have saved him today, but it was he fought hard, but didn't make it. But this is a picture of what it would have looked like at the time. This is the outside of the Petersen House, and if you look outside the front door, you look right at Ford's Theater. So that's why they took him there. It wasn't like a hospital or anything. It was just a person's house, and they brought him in and tried to take care of him. This is the bed where Abraham Lincoln died. And so that's the story of Abraham Lincoln's death. And yes, they do have plexiglass and stuff around it so that you don't touch it. On to the National Archives. So the National Archives is a great place, really interesting stuff. They have a ton of records in here about all sorts of things. It tells the story of the nation's, they say, the civil, military, and diplomatic activities. So any sort of documents that have happened throughout the United States end up being stored here. So we have things like ship manifests, and the Emancipation Proclamation was housed here for a while. I believe it is in the African American Museum now. But yes, but at some point it was here in the National Archives. There are journals from the polar expeditions. There are pictures of people during the Dust Bowl. There are treaties and the documentation for the Louisiana Purchase. So there's all sorts of things here. So in Washington alone, these documents total about 10 billion pieces of paper and 25 million pictures and graphics. They have also film and sound and video recordings. So there's all sorts of amazing stuff here. They have maps and charts and architectural engineering plans, and they have all sorts of information here. So aside from that, I mean, that's a ton of stuff. However, the thing that they're most famous for, oh, sorry, this is another picture of the outside of the building. The thing that they're most famous for here is that this is where they keep the Declaration and the Constitution. So you can see in this rotunda area, there are a lot of documents around here, and then up in the front, that's the main attraction. And that's where you can view the those famous documents. And yes, if you watch National Treasure, they do come in this room, and he tries to figure out how to steal things and things like that. So anyway, this is there's some cool paintings up here as well. This is where you're going to see the documents, and they're under protective glass. They even have special air in there, like a gas that the paper doesn't disintegrate as fast, because it's an important document. They want to take good care of it. There's another picture, so you can see it says "We the People" and all that stuff. Another cool attraction is the National Zoo. Just like our zoo, they have lots of amazing animals in it. If you're interested in checking out some of the items here, you can check the link out. Another cool place that we often go to is the old post office tower. It's cool for a lot of reasons. It has this really cool tower. Yes, you can go on top of it, but it also has a really cool food court and some cool shops in it as well. So it was built, it took a while to build. It took about 7 years to build it. It has a lot of really cool history to it, and it has, you know, this really tall tower. It's the second tallest structure in the nation's capital, second only to the Washington Monument. So there was a bit of time where this was actually under kind of risk of getting torn down, because it was to the point where they were ready to demolish it, and there were a lot of efforts to preserve it, and now it's become one of Washington's favorite landmarks. It's a really cool spot to go. This is what the tower, like if you go inside, you can see that there's this big empty space in the middle that you can look down to. And then you can go up the elevator to the top, which is this big viewing area where you can see a lot of Washington, D.C. So I would hate to have seen this be torn down. So I'm glad that they saved it. This is the food court area and lots of cool shops. So this is another fun favorite place to go. The nice thing about the food courts is you can grab all sorts of different kinds of food. So it depends on what you're in the mood for. They have all sorts of goodies here, and lots of cool shops with souvenirs too. The U.S. Botanical Gardens. So similar to our Crone Conservatory, Washington, D.C. has this, the U.S. Botanical Garden. They have a couple of different parts to it. They have the conservatory, the indoor area here, and then there's the National Garden, and they also have a park. So all sorts of cool stuff in here. This is what the indoors looks like. So your typical kind of greenhouse, but it's a beautiful place to go. All right, to some of the fun areas that have sport-related items. So Capital One Arena is, well, at one point it was the MCI Center, and then it was the Verizon Center until 2017, and now it's called the Capital One Arena. It is home to the Washington Wizards. It's home to the Washington Mystics, goodness. So those are both NBA teams. The Wizards are a men's NBA team, and then the Mystics are a women's NBA team. The NHL team, the hockey team that plays there, is the Washington Capitals. And then the college team, the Georgetown Hoyas, actually play there as well. So it's a busy place. Lots of sports going on in Capital One Arena. Nationals Ballpark. Now, typically, when we go to Washington, D.C., we try to make it to a ball game. It depends on if the Washington Nationals are in town or not. But this ballpark, it looks a little similar to, you'll notice a little similar to the Great American Ballpark, just in the way that it's designed. It's definitely home to the Washington Nationals. They were the World Series champions in 2019. For a while, the Washington Nationals played at RFK Stadium, but then that was just while their stadium was being built. And then when their stadium was finished being built, then they moved in, and that's where they play now. Another cool place that we often go to is Georgetown Cupcake. Georgetown Cupcake is a cupcake place, and it's famous for they had a reality TV show on TLC. And so the co-founders of Georgetown Cupcake had an opportunity to be on a lot of different cupcakes, like challenges and things like that. And then they had their own show. So some people like to go here, grab a sweet treat, and see where they've filmed that. So that's a sweet treat spot for our tour. Yeah, that's all the really cool places that I can think of to share with you guys. We've seen a lot. If you didn't check out the other videos, there are some really cool things to check out. If you check out the museum ones, there are a lot of really cool artifacts that you can check out there. There's a great history to Washington, D.C., so if you didn't get a chance to check out the history, check that out. And then the part 1 and part 2 of this, if you didn't check those out, there are some really cool facts about all sorts of memorials and other buildings as well. So thanks for listening. Thanks, guys. Bye.